Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Gabriel Anderson had always hated airports. They were an unavoidable part of his job, a constant presence he couldn't escape, and he partly blamed them for the friction in his 29-year marriage. For him, airports were chaotic spaces, filled with endless crowds moving between checkpoints, where each passenger was processed more like cargo than a person. He wondered if it was time to simply accept this routine process. After all, the salary justified the inconvenience, even if travel wasn't always smooth. 15 years ago, he had waited in every line, for check-in, security, boarding, patiently waiting his turn to reach a cramped seat at the back of the cabin, only to face further delays as passengers fought for space in the overhead bins. Now, with years of experience, he no longer checked bags, usually breezed through security, and avoided the typical hassles. Over time, Gabriel's frequent coast-to-coast flights, and the increasingly shorter flights in between, had earned him certain privileges. He could avoid the back rows, board early, and thanks to his credit card, access lounge areas, which was especially pleasant in a bustling big city airport. Yet, despite these improvements, his dislike for travel remained. But today, as he sat in the lounge, he noticed an elegant woman named Veronica. She wore a stylish dress with a neckline partly hidden beneath a cardigan and struck up a conversation. As they talked, her cardigan slipped slightly, catching his eye. Gabriel listened, captivated by her words and appearance. Eventually, she handed him her business card, and he was surprised to learn that she was also from his city. This shared detail kept their conversation going for a few more minutes. Veronica had another destination before heading home, and he figured that was probably for the best. As they parted for their flights, Gabriel wondered, had she been flirting with him? His intuition in such matters had dulled over the years of marriage, so he only realized this possibility after the fact. Even if he had noticed in the moment, nothing would have happened. He had been faithful for all 29 years of his marriage and intended to remain so. Though his regular cross-country trips were routine, today ended on a high note, not only due to work successes promising a potential bonus in the next quarter, but also because of the pleasant conversation with Veronica. Settling into his upgraded economy seat, Gabriel prepared for the return journey. Just as he reached for his phone to switch it to airplane mode, it rang. It was his wife, Emily, unusually early for her to call. He hesitated, his finger hovering over the screen, but ultimately decided it wasn't urgent and turned off the phone. If one of the kids had called, he would have answered, but whatever Emily wanted could wait. Their relationship had been tense for the past 15 years, and though he knew his travel schedule had played a role, he felt her reaction was excessive. He traveled only about 5 nights a month, but even that seemed too much for Emily. He wished for her understanding. When he had first accepted this high-paying, bonus-laden position, she had been thrilled, practically pushing him out the door. She was equally welcoming when he returned, especially appreciating the financial stability it provided. Lately, despite his efforts to rekindle their connection with dates and dinners, Emily had grown more distant. A recent conversation with his boss had opened up the possibility of a new position, more travel, a higher salary. Gabriel hadn't mentioned it to Emily, knowing it would only worsen things. He felt sad about the tension, but he found solace in their children, who were thriving. His daughter Olivia was about to graduate from college, and his son Mike was taking summer courses to get a head start in engineering, following in his father's footsteps. Both kids were smart, witty, and hard-working, the pride of both parents. He missed the days when their presence filled the house, and he sensed that Emily did too, given her increasingly withdrawn behavior. Despite the marital difficulties, Gabriel felt proud of the outstanding young people they had raised together. Over the years, they had discovered many ways to fill their lives with joy. Gabriel often caught himself wishing he could spend more time with them. Now that the children lived nearby, he started considering moving to a smaller house. However, Emily had no such desire. Her role as CFO at the hospital and involvement in various charitable organizations kept her deeply connected to the local community. The house, the neighborhood, and the relationships they had built were perfect for her public image. Maintaining the house and garden required more effort than a smaller place would, but Gabriel saw it as part of supporting his wife's social role. He sighed heavily as his flight continued, each minute feeling more tiring than the last. He didn't feel like watching a movie, and unable to sleep, he closed his eyes, hoping to rest a little. A sudden jolt on landing woke him up. It turned out he had managed to sleep through most of the flight. When he turned on his phone, the screen lit up with numerous notifications, voicemails and texts from nearly everyone he held dear. He immediately called his daughter. "Oh, thank goodness, Dad, I was so worried." "Olivia, you knew I was on a plane. What's happened? I see so many calls, but no one said anything specific." "I know, but I didn't want to explain over the phone. Stop by my place on your way home. Mike will be here too." "Olivia, you can't leave me hanging like this. Are you okay? Is Mom okay? Did something happen?" "I'm sorry, Daddy, it's complicated, but everything's okay. I'll explain everything when you get here." Puzzled, Gabriel hurried from the international airport to Olivia's apartment near her college. He knocked, and when Olivia opened the door, he saw worry on her face. Inside, he noticed his son with a serious expression. "What's going on, sweetheart?" "Oh, Dad, we're so sorry. This has all spiraled out of control," Olivia said, holding back tears. Mike added, "It's a real mess, Dad. Total chaos." "Just tell me what happened," Gabriel insisted. "We never thought it would go this far." Olivia looked exhausted. "It just kept building up like a snowball." "What exactly did you not want to happen?" "Well, maybe we wanted something to happen, but not like this. All right, here's what happened. It started about 2 months ago when you were away. I wanted to surprise Mom with a visit for lunch, but when I pulled up, I noticed an expensive car in the driveway. I didn't recognize it, and no one had mentioned that someone was coming over. From the street, I saw lights inside and shadows moving toward the garage. I called Mom, but she didn't answer. I tried again a few minutes later, and finally, she picked up. When I asked if she was home, she said she was still at work and would call me back later. I knew she wasn't being honest, and after hanging up, I stayed in the car, unsure of what to do. Finally, I moved my car out of sight and walked closer to peek through the garage window. I saw Mom's car next to that expensive one and felt furious. I called Mike to tell him what I'd seen and demanded an explanation. Angry and determined, I watched as long as I could. When I got tired, Mike took over and stayed there through the night. Finally, around 8 in the morning, a man came out. Mike followed him to an office building, asked the security guard his name, and called me. We didn't know what to do next. When I called Mom the next day, she didn't even call me back. Since then, things have been tense between us. During your last visit, we discussed everything, but the same issue has come up again. So Mike and I decided it was time to take action. Mike took the first step. A few weeks ago, when I was there, you were checking the smoke detectors, and when I saw the one in the garage, I had a funny thought. At the time, it seemed amusing. But now, thinking it over, it doesn't seem very wise. We hesitated to tell you about it because we knew you'd want to catch the culprit red-handed and maybe even expose him, which could lead to a scandal. That might hurt Mom, though, unintentionally, and you could even get arrested. We definitely didn't want that. We decided we could humiliate him without making things worse. So I suggested that Olivia sneak into the garage at night and create a small spark discharge, like the kind electric cars sometimes give off. Just a bit of smoke to trigger the alarm. The plan was that all the detectors were working properly, and it would end with just a call to the fire department. It turned out there was a heat detector in the garage, not a smoke detector. Mike's face went pale. "That's why the alarm didn't go off immediately," he muttered, and Gabriel just shook his head. Olivia added, "We thought the fire department's visit would humiliate him, but that didn't seem like enough, so I raised the stakes." Gabriel's eyes widened as he began to grasp the seriousness of what was happening. "It looks like my marriage is at risk," he said. "Is the house at least intact?" Olivia sighed. "Yes, mostly." After a brief pause, she continued, I went to the house a couple of times after Mom left for work, and each time I found an empty wine bottle in the trash that belonged to Mom. Since Mom usually chills her wine, I decided to use the opportunity to embarrass him. Nowadays, drugs like Viagra are easy to order online, so I got some. I'm studying pharmacy, and with my knowledge of chemistry, I knew how to dissolve the pills in a liquid. Gabriel interjected, Please tell me you didn't actually do it. Oh, I did, she admitted. Yesterday afternoon, I snuck into the house, saw that Mom had opened a bottle, resealed it, and put it aside. It was barely touched, so I added my mixture, stirred it, and left it as it was. We hoped that when the fire department arrived, he'd have to rush out of the house and it would be hard for him to hide his condition in front of the neighbors. Then Mike spoke up. In the middle of the night, I climbed in through a window I'd left slightly open in the garage. I used the car's charging port and a few tools to create an arc that heated the metal around the port. I'm not sure if there was an issue with the car, but suddenly sparks flew everywhere. I thought the smoke detector would go off, that was my hope, and I ran out of there. As it turned out, after I left, the battery actually caught fire. I think that happened because by the time the fire department arrived, both cars, his and Mom's, were already in flames. By then, the alarm had gone off for the whole house, and the entire neighborhood heard it. Olivia added, You know how Mom panics in such situations, right? She was utterly terrified. The situation escalated from there. More than a cheating wife and an almost burned-down house? Gabriel asked with dry sarcasm. Olivia continued, The house didn't burn down. Great, he muttered. So when I talked to Mom in the morning, she told me she'd jumped out of bed as soon as the alarm sounded. She tried to wake Carter, but he was completely unconscious from drinking. She thought he'd died and went into an even bigger panic. She ended up calling 911, requesting both the fire department and medics. She grabbed him by the ankles and tried to drag him out of the bedroom to the front door, forgetting, or simply not noticing, that they were both completely unclothed. He was too heavy for her to carry him down the stairs, so she dragged him face down, step by step. Do you remember that nail sticking out of the rug at the entrance to the bedroom? The one I stubbed my toe on the last time I was over? Well, it seems like it either never got fixed or it popped out again, because something unpleasant happened. This time Mom was trying to drag Carter, which is no small feat considering his size, and that unfortunate nail caught on him. And since he had managed to mix wine and Viagra, things only got worse. The nail tore his skin, leaving scratches on his stomach, face, and, unfortunately, below the waist. The house was dark. Carter was unconscious, so Mom didn't notice anything odd. She just kept pulling him down the stairs. I admit, I almost felt sorry for him. Besides a long gash stretching across his body and bleeding from the groin, he got rug burns all over, from his stomach to his nose. When he finally slid off the last step and hit the kitchen tile, the fall only worsened his condition. Mom continued dragging him across the kitchen floor, right to the front door, where his head banged against the door frame, then bounced onto the concrete porch, and eventually rolled onto the sidewalk. Every bump added new cuts and bruises to his already battered face. Gabriel looked unfazed. Apparently the noise triggered the security alarm, waking up the neighbors. By the time Mom had almost dragged her nearly naked lover onto the lawn, a small crowd had already gathered. Timothy, the neighbor from across the street, filmed everything and sent it to me. Gabriel was shocked when he watched the footage. In the video, you can see Emily pacing back and forth across the yard, still half-dressed, while Carter's head repeatedly bangs against the steps as she drags him. It was as if either adrenaline or some hidden strength allowed her to move him as if he weighed nothing. Soon, an ambulance and firefighters arrived, filled the house, opened the garage, and started cleaning everything up. The paramedics wrapped Emily in a blanket, and when they turned Carter over, they made another discovery. Mike explained that Carter's electric car had a safety feature that sent a notification to his home phone when unusual activity was detected. Carter's wife, Francine, received this notification, noticed that the car was parked somewhere odd and not at the airport, and immediately headed there. Gabriel was stunned when the medics tried to bring Carter back to consciousness but failed. They had prepared a stretcher, but just as they were about to lift him, Francine burst in and flipped the stretcher, sending Carter face first onto the sidewalk. This last fall left a deep wound that wasn't easy to stitch up. Gabriel asked if he deserved some sympathy, but Francine, boiling with rage, couldn't contain herself and landed a few punches on him before she was finally stopped. Emily stood motionless, while no fewer than a dozen curious neighbors watched the chaos unfold. Francine lunged at Emily, but, instead of hitting her, tore off the blanket, leaving Emily exposed for several long moments until someone found another blanket. Watching his wife, Gabriel thought, "I'm going to miss this sight." But it seemed the neighbors had already seen enough. Emily's personal grooming preferences, so to speak, were no longer a secret. By the time the police finally arrived, the situation had mostly calmed down, except for Carter's car, which was sparking and smoking. Still fuming, Francine demanded that Emily be arrested. On what grounds was unclear, but an officer led Emily to the patrol car for her safety, away from the furious Francine and the prying crowd. Later, Olivia shared that although they knew Carter was married to Francine, they hadn't realized she was the district attorney's daughter. That detail may have played a role, as Emily was taken to the station, still wrapped in only a blanket. She wasn't released until around 10 in the morning, after she failed to reach Gabriel. Gabriel remarked that it was probably karma. Oddly enough, when Carter never regained consciousness, they conducted a toxicology test, and the only unusual finding was a trace of Viagra. When Carter's wife first heard the news, her reaction was one of complete disbelief and fury. Given his heart problems, it was unbearable for her to imagine he could take such a risk. At least that's what she claimed. The medic tried to reassure her, pointing out that, strangely enough, the fire had been something of a blessing. Because of it, Carter made it to the hospital in time, preventing him from slipping into a coma. Without this intervention, the consequences could have been far more serious. Gabriel, still regaining his composure, asked, "Could it really have been worse than this?" Mike intervened, mentioning that the police had taken their mother for questioning and had come to their house that same day looking for evidence. Amidst the chaos, the firefighters had broken a bottle of wine and some glasses, leaving shattered glass, spilled wine, and water everywhere, destroying any traces. Mike had been there earlier and noticed that the only remaining sign was a trail of blood leading down the steps and outside. He assumed the police were now trying to get more answers from their mother. People seemed to assume Carter had taken Viagra, which was extremely risky given his condition. However, without conclusive proof, Mike thought the police wouldn't hold their mother for long. He added that the firefighters had managed to save his prized car from the garage. By this point, rumors about the incident had spread, and by morning both their mother and Francine were featured in the headlines. Gabriel asked, "And where is your mother now?" Olivia responded, "She's still at the station. They said they'd call us as soon as we can pick her up." "Dad, I'm so sorry. We should have come to you instead of letting our anger get the best of us. It feels like we've only made things worse." Gabriel's children looked upset, but he gave them a faint smile. Rising, he said, "I appreciate what you both tried to do. Honestly, it means a lot to me. And to be fair, I don't think you messed anything up. Looking at it objectively, everything turned out relatively fine. I'm going home. Your mom will need you both, and I'll leave it to you to decide who picks her up from the station, but it definitely won't be me." They nodded in agreement. On his way back, Gabriel stopped at the bank to transfer half of their funds to a separate account in his name. He planned to handle the rest of the finances that evening or the next day. Then he stopped by a local store to buy garbage bags, assuming most of his clothes were smoke damaged. When he got home, he ignored the fire's aftermath, but noticed the trail of blood winding through the house. He smirked quietly. The front door was shut but left unlocked, and the blood trail led inside. The kitchen by the garage looked as if a small explosion had occurred there. Ignoring the mess, he headed straight to the bedroom to gather clothes for the dry cleaner. He left questions about property damage to the insurance company. The unmade bed stirred a faint sadness in him, but he quickly brushed it off. He already had a plan forming in his mind. Divorce. He would split the finances, find a new apartment, travel more, and spend time with the kids, looking forward to a newfound sense of freedom. Gabriel asked Mike to send him a copy of the video so he could share it with the local news. No doubt Emily's volunteer organizations would appreciate a little extra publicity, especially in such a dramatic context. As he loaded the last bag into the car, a police car pulled up, and an officer got out, asking for identification. The officer looked slightly tense, possibly aware of that day's events or having seen the footage himself, but nevertheless asked the question, "Will you be all right?" The whirlwind of the day's events flashed before Gabriel's eyes, like a roulette wheel. When it finally stopped on Veronica's business card, his face lit up with a smile. "Oh, I'll be more than all right, officer. Trust me, everything's going to be just fine." After the divorce, Emily was left with 20% of all savings and was infamous nationwide. The video had been shown on the main channel. Emily's career was destroyed, as was she. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Violetta and Matteo got carried away with intimacy in the office conference room where they worked, unaware that anyone might catch them. They were keenly aware their time was limited, and that after their peak, only a few fleeting moments of closeness would remain. Matteo sensed Violetta's growing irritation when she whispered, her voice laced with frustration, "Where are my clothes?" The sharpness in her tone was unmistakable. "Are you seriously asking me that?" Matteo retorted. "I don't know, but they're not where I left them," she replied, patting around the spot where she believed they should have been, squinting in the dark. Matteo gestured for her to lower her voice. "We don't need anyone overhearing us." Violetta replied with a tense whisper, "I'm aware. Did you find your pants?" "No." "Are you sure you didn't move them?" he asked, only to hear Violetta's disappointed sigh. "No, Matteo, I didn't move them," she repeated. Matteo ran his hand through his hair, muttering a quiet curse. "So where could they be?" "How should I know? Just open the blinds a bit so we can see better." He turned the rod to let in a sliver of light, but it only illuminated the carpeted floor, no sign of their missing clothes. Panic began to creep into Violetta's voice. "Someone must have taken them." "And my phone was in my pants pocket," Matteo said, his eyes widening. "You're not joking? My phone was in my pants, too." She stood up straight, scanning the room as if their things might magically appear. "I don't see any tissues or anything we could use. Isn't there usually something next to the water pitcher?" she asked, but Matteo shook his head, equally tense. "There's nothing here. This is really bad." "What do we do now?" she asked, and Matteo looked around before responding. "I'll lock the door until we figure this out." A moment later, Violetta turned to him with wide eyes full of disbelief. "Wait, you mean you didn't lock the door before?" Her voice rose higher than she intended, irritation spilling out. "You came in last. I thought you closed it," Matteo said, trying to keep his voice low, but Violetta's anger flared. "I did close it. You must have opened it." "I just locked it, Violetta," he insisted, his voice calm but with a hint of annoyance. "This is a complete mess." "Is there anything in the closet?" she asked, already heading towards it. Matteo followed her, watching as she rummaged through until she found an overlooked packet of tissues tucked away in a corner. Without hesitation, she tore open the packet and quickly used the tissues to clean herself up. After wiping her body and legs, she looked around, a mix of relief and disappointment washing over her. This small victory hardly felt worth celebrating, and they fell into silence, the weight of their predicament bearing down on them as they stood there, with no new solutions. After a few minutes of silence, Violetta finally spoke again, her voice cautious but determined. "We need to wait until everyone leaves the building." "It's only 10 a.m., Matteo pointed out, irritation creeping back into his tone. "Someone's going to need this conference room today. Do you really want to hide here for the next 8 hours?" Crawl under the carpet? Really? Have you ever considered that someone might actually be looking for us? She spat out, I don't see you offering any alternatives. Then, with a sharp tone, added, By the way, I have a meeting on the second floor at 3 p.m. If I'm late, I'm toast. He sighed heavily. Let's be honest, darling, I think we're both in deep trouble. Whoever has our things can demand anything from us. Just think about that for a second. Are you ready to become someone's office toy? He responded with a smirk. Shh, she replied, but unable to resist, teased. Maybe it would be easier for you if it were a guy. You could join all the men in the restroom, kneeling there waiting for your turn. The thought hit Mateo hard, twisting his stomach into knots and making him nauseous. Please, universe, he thought. Karma, mom, anyone. Don't let the person who has our things be a man. The minutes dragged on in awkward, tense silence. Finally, Mateo broke it. Is there anyone we can call for help? No sooner had he spoken than the intercom buzzed, and a calm voice announced, Violetta has a call on line 3. She froze, realizing that someone definitely knew where she was and was toying with them. Her hands shook as she pressed the button on the old intercom, clearing her throat. Violetta speaking. Hey, sweetheart, a cheerful male voice rang out, completely unaware of her panic. You were so spot on about lunch. I'll drop by your office around noon, but sorry, I gotta run. See you soon. Homer, wait, she tried to shout, but the line had already gone dead. The phone slipped from her fingers as she sank to the floor, tears rolling down her cheeks as she started to cry, her voice thick with emotion. Who? Who was that? Mateo's voice tightened with fear, looking at her as if the answer could seal their fate. Violetta could only shake her head, unable to put her thoughts into words, when the intercom buzzed ominously again. This time, an indifferent voice announced, Mateo, you have a call on line 2. Mateo cautiously approached the intercom, pressing the button as if it might bite him. Hello? This is Mateo, he said, his throat dry. Hi, darling, a cheerful female voice chimed in. Great idea about lunch. I'll bring the kids and swing by around noon. Oh, wait, my mom's calling. See you soon. The line cut off as suddenly as it had started. Mateo slumped against the wall, utterly broken, tears streaming down his face as the weight of their situation came crashing down on him. Exhausted from sobbing, he finally gathered himself and looked at Violetta, who whispered, So, lunch with the wife too? He nodded, feeling the last sparks of hope crumble. Time passed mercilessly as they sat, absorbed in a shared sense of guilt, grief, and helplessness. Their usual excuses, it's insignificant, just a mistake, felt utterly hollow, as fragile as their shattered relationship, their jobs, and every other carefully constructed piece of their lives. Just when they thought it couldn't get worse, the intercom buzzed one last time, announcing, Attention all employees, the monthly corporate holiday party will be held today at noon in the 5th floor conference room. Oh my God! Violetta's voice trembled with horror. Her eyes darted around, searching for any possible escape. Do you think the window's open? Mateo looked at her, his expression as dry as it could be under the circumstances. We're on the 5th floor, genius. I can't fly and you probably can't either, even if you think you're a woodpecker, Violetta shouted. Shut up, witch! Do you have a better idea? He was determined not to owe anyone anything. Absolutely not. Just break the window already. I'd rather meet my death than stand here naked in front of everyone, especially with you beside me. With what do you want me to break it? My neck? Or maybe your head? He shot back. No. I'd sooner tell them you charged me $100 for a date, he said. Furious, Violetta lunged at Mateo, ready to scratch his face. At the last second, he grabbed her wrists and stopped her. Unfortunately, he couldn't defend himself from her sneaky knee landing sharply into his groin. Mateo howled and staggered backward, dragging Violetta down as she twisted. She flew through the air, landing painfully on her backside on the carpet that felt as hard as asphalt rather than soft grass. After the rough landing, Violetta's bare skin stung. Mateo struggled to get up, wincing from the pain. But when faced with an aggressive woman bent on attack, a survival strategy had to be crafted. He positioned a conference table between them, trying to keep some distance from Violetta. When she bent under the table, he scrambled onto it, painfully sliding his injured limbs across the smooth surface before landing on the other side, anticipating her next move. This game of tug-of-war continued for several minutes, until Violetta began regaining her composure. Damn, Matteo was just too quick for her. Matteo watched Violetta closely as he tried again to open the windows. Unfortunately, they were tightly shut and seemed too solid to break. Even without the glass, he realized he couldn't jump. There was no ledge to cling to for an escape. The clock in the room ticked away. It was already 11 o'clock. The undressed pair had just 1 hour before their previously respectable lives would be destroyed. Suddenly, an idea sparked in Matteo's mind, making him jump as if on springs. What if they could get to the ceiling? Perhaps they could climb up there and use the ventilation ducts to escape to another room. In their desperate situation, it was a risk worth taking. He carefully shifted a translucent acoustic ceiling tile, but the supporting wire wasn't strong enough to hold the weight of a person crawling on it. As Matteo ran around the room, searching for an escape route, the intercom crackled again. Violetta was also waiting for a call. With mounting frustration, she approached the communicator. "What now?" she muttered, but pressed the flashing button, adopting a professional tone. "This is Violetta. Violetta, this is John Burns. I need you to bring the Simpson files to my office immediately. Mrs. Simpson is on her way to see me." "Sir, I can't," she stammered, but was cut off by her boss's furious roar. "This isn't a request. I said now. Do you understand?" A sharp click was followed by an anxious silence. John Burns was the senior partner and the highest authority in the office. If Violetta didn't deliver those files on time, her career would be destroyed, though it was already hanging by a thread. Tears rolled down her face, but it didn't change her situation. Across the table, Matteo couldn't hold back a smirk at the sight of her obvious distress. However, his smile faded when the reactivated intercom spoke, interrupting Violetta's sobs. "Matteo, you have a call on line 4, the machine announced, further irritating him. "Just kill me now," he muttered, the agony etched on his face as he pressed the answer button. Matteo sat at his desk, lost in thought, when a voice interrupted. A woman's voice, unfamiliar, yet commanding. "Matteo, this is Marge Crabb. Mr. Burns requires you to conduct a financial performance analysis on Simpson, with adjustments in the range of 3 to 5%. Please print out your results and bring them here within 10 minutes. "Miss Crabb," Matteo replied, keeping a serious tone, "I'm currently experiencing some technical issues with my computer." "What a shame, Matteo," she shot back sharply. "You have 10 minutes. Before he could say anything more, the line abruptly cut off. Stunned by a sense of impending disaster, Matteo closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair, hoping to escape the reality of his looming troubles. Suddenly, a shrill voice echoed beside him. "Here's $100, you fool!" In that instant, Matteo felt a sharp pain as Violetta, taking advantage of his distraction, struck him on the head with a glass jar, shattering it with terrifying force. The impact rocked him, and his agonized scream filled the room as he collapsed to the floor. "Could you keep it down, please?" came a crackling sound over the intercom. "Some of us are trying to work." Matteo lay on the carpet, gasping, while Violetta, emboldened by her act of revenge, shouted into the intercom, "Go to hell, witch!" 5 agonizing minutes passed. Matteo remained curled up, nausea overwhelming him, and he vomited twice on the carpet, filling the air with a dreadful stench. Violetta tossed a crumpled napkin packet toward him, but was soon interrupted by the intercom again. "Violetta, you have a call on line 1, came the announcement. She paused, considering whether to answer. Finally, she reluctantly picked up. "This is Violetta," she said, pressing the button. "What is going on? I requested the Simpson files, and instead I receive a package with your ID, clothes, and phone." Their supervisor's voice was thick with irritation. Violetta hung up, slumping beside Matteo's desk. "How could everything go so wrong?" she lamented. "Matteo has a call on line 3, came the intercom again. Slowly, Violetta pressed the button, inadvertently disconnecting Matteo's call without explanation. Summoning his strength, he managed to say, "This is Mateo. Mateo, this is James Smithers, HR manager. We've received a harassment complaint from Miss Crabbe. She claims you sent her a package with her clothes and phone instead of the requested printouts. Apparently the clothes were quite messy, with shoe marks on the back of her shorts. What kind of joke are you trying to pull on a respectable woman?" "Sir, this isn't what it seems," Mateo insisted, his voice laced with despair. "I need you in my office, immediately." The line ended with a loud crack as the phone dropped. Mateo turned to Violetta, a faint smile appearing on his face. "Whoever is behind this is clearly enjoying our misfortune." As he rolled onto his side, he noticed blood staining the carpet. A well-aimed blow from Violetta had left him injured. "Oh my God, Mateo, you're bleeding!" she exclaimed, her face changing in shock. "I'm so sorry! Call 911. I need medical help urgently," he groaned, his voice filled with urgency. "But," she hesitated, clearly at a loss. "No buts! We'd be dead if we hadn't already buried ourselves. Give me the damn phone," Violetta snapped, dialing for emergency services, asking them to come to the 5th floor conference room. When the paramedics arrived at 11:51 a.m., they knocked politely on the locked door. Violetta quickly opened it, trying to slip out of sight as 2 uniformed men entered the room. "Quite the serious Friday fun in this office," one of them noted, taking in the scene. The younger of the 2 men chuckled quietly as he approached Mateo, who was pressed against his desk. John Burns, who had arrived just after the paramedics, noticed Violetta desperately trying to cover herself with her hands. Eagerly, he said, "Miss Van Houten, you need to put something on immediately." "I can't. My clothes are gone," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with anxiety. "Somebody give her something to wear," he commanded, glancing at curious employees peeking around the corner. He turned back to Violetta, sharply asking, "Where's Mateo's clothing?" "It's gone too," Violetta answered, her voice barely audible. "What? Did someone threaten you both and force you to undress?" Mr. Burns asked, a note of disbelief in his tone. "No, sir," Violetta stammered. "We were using the conference room for a date, and while we were distracted, our clothes disappeared." Tears rolled down her cheeks as one of the employees handed her a coat, which she quickly wrapped around herself, clutching it tightly. Meanwhile, the paramedics had called the police to investigate the strange incident that left Mateo injured. As noon approached, marking the start of the planned office party, a crowd began to gather around the scene. Rumors swirled through the office, the details of the incident growing more exaggerated than the reality. A police officer arrived and briefly spoke with Mateo before leading Violetta to a quieter place for a private conversation. Mateo, strapped to a stretcher, was wheeled past the onlookers like a figure in a parade. As he passed, Chloe, the secretary from the 5th floor, seized the moment to make a biting remark. "Thanks for not helping me get that job I was promised," she noted with blatant sarcasm. Mateo winced, feeling humiliated. He had tried for a long time to impress Chloe, boasting about his connections in the company. When she showed little interest in a romantic relationship, he had started belittling her, treating her as a mere assistant. Now, catching a glimpse of her smug smile as he was wheeled away, he began to suspect she might have orchestrated his current predicament. A little later, Homer, Violetta's husband, arrived and joined the gathering crowd in the conference room. Behind him came Mateo's wife, pushing a stroller with their child inside. As Mateo was taken away in one elevator, Chloe rode up in another. Ensuring John Burns could hear her, she called out, "Hey, Violetta, do you still think our humble secretary lacks the creativity to succeed in business?" Mr. Burns stepped away from the group and took the opportunity to introduce himself. "Young lady, what's your name and what do you know about this situation?" he asked, directing his question at the lively young woman who seemed rather observant. Everyone in the room, including the newly arrived spouses, focused their attention on her, eager to hear her response. "I'm Chloe Robinson," she introduced herself. "I'm the secretary on the 5th floor. When Violetta and Mateo reserved the conference room for today, I felt something was off. They'd done this before," she explained knowingly. "When they went in this morning, I discreetly followed them. They were too absorbed in each other to notice when I picked their clothes up from the floor. Then I left just as quietly as I'd come, while they, well, engaged in inappropriate activities. A playful smile spread across John Burns's face as he folded his hands, clearly amused. Excellent. Continue. I redirected all incoming calls from their desks to my switchboard. Using their mobile phones, I sent texts to their spouses, inviting them here for a noon lunch. I told the spouses to call the office directly. Chloe smiled slightly, revealing charming dimples as she described her clever plan to Mr. Burns and the interested audience. Every time someone tried to reach the office, all the calls were routed to my console, including yours, sir. I activated the intercom system. She pointed to the intercom on the desk, signaling to everyone about incoming calls. John's mischievous grin turned into a wide smile. Most of those present reacted to Chloe's revelations with laughter and chuckling, except for two hurt spouses who were full of resentment over their partner's betrayal. And what about the story behind the outfits that were sent to me and Mrs. Crabapple? The boss asked another question. Apologies, sir, Chloe responded, her discomfort evident. I sincerely regret it, especially for both of you. I just wanted this to be the last nail in the coffin of their deception. I understand. Well, you certainly achieved that. What drives your personal disdain for them? Is it just their inappropriate behavior? Chloe explained. It goes deeper. They treated me with such disdain as if they were above me. Perhaps this will teach them an important lesson, prompting them to rethink their actions before thoughtlessly breaking ties in the future, Mr. Burns remarked. Miss Robinson, my executive assistant, Mrs. Crabapple, will soon retire. I would like you to consider applying for her position, he said, clearly impressed with the young woman's conduct during this scandalous episode. Some members of the audience started clapping, soon joined by others. Then a police officer approached Mr. Burns. May I have the evidence bag for Violette? I'm arresting her for assaulting Mateo. A moment later, the downcast Violette walked out, moving as if she had committed a grave crime. Homer shouted after her, Don't even think of coming back home, you witch! Meanwhile, Mateo's worried wife asked, Where is Mateo? John Burns escorted the emotional couple, both with tears in their eyes, into his office for a private discussion. Swift retribution struck the scandalous pair, Mateo and Violette. Ultimately, the company paid a substantial settlement to Mateo's wife for her suffering, considering Violette held a senior position while Mateo did not. Homer, rather than demanding financial compensation, chose to leave the unfaithful spouses in their positions within the company until the divorce was finalized, thereby avoiding alimony payments to his unfaithful former wife. However, the divorce court issued a significant alimony ruling against Mateo. In contrast, Homer Van Houten's divorce filing faced no opposition, allowing him to avoid any alimony obligations entirely. Shortly after their divorces were completed, Violette and Mateo were dismissed for violating company policy. Chloe Robinson was appointed as Mr. Burns's new personal secretary. Interestingly, many company employees began treating her with even greater caution than they did the boss himself. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. I woke at dawn as the first rays of light seeped through the morning haze, accompanied by the clear calls of mountain birds. Lying motionless, I listened to the faint rustling around the camp where chipmunks searched for crumbs from last night's meal. In that quiet moment, I allowed myself to feel a rare, fleeting sense of peace, absorbing the soothing beauty of nature, a sensation I hadn't experienced in years. But just as this calm took hold, reality crashed down on me, heavy and relentless. At this high altitude, the air was sharp and crisp, and stepping out of the tent, I was greeted by a majestic lake surrounded by snow-capped peaks. I wanted to stay in that morning stillness, let everything else fade away, maybe even spend the day fishing. But today was the day I had dreaded for weeks, a day I could no longer postpone if I wanted to move forward. I prepared a simple breakfast, eggs and sausages frying on a propane burner, and strong black coffee. As I ate, preparing myself for the long hike ahead, I found a quiet sense of contentment in the morning ritual. I reminded myself that life holds beauty and joy if we keep moving forward. Deep down, I knew I'd return to the things that once brought me happiness. Hiking, fishing, trekking, and sailing, all the things I had set aside for 30 years of marriage. Once, I believed my wife was the love of my life. Now, she was a woman I had once sincerely thought of that way. Nonetheless, I remained optimistic, hoping that perhaps one day there would be another chance for love. The trail on the way back was silent, and with every step, I felt a slight relief, meeting not a soul along the way. At my car, I gathered my belongings and headed for the main road. After 4 days off the grid, I turned on my phone, expecting a flood of messages and emails accumulated during that time. As I approached the highway, a notification appeared, a message from my son, Ryan. Over the years, Ryan and I had grown close. Our bond had strengthened through hardships. We had become not just father and son, but friends who shared mutual respect and love. Ryan's message was brief, yet sincere. Dad, I love you and support you. Good luck today. Hang in there. There's always light at the end of the tunnel somewhere ahead. His words stirred something deep within me, giving me the strength I had been lacking for the challenges to come. The next message was from my daughter, Krista. She, too, expressed her love and support. Daddy, how I wish I were there to hug you and tell you that everything will be okay. You're the best father we could have dreamed of. You always put us first. Now it's time for you to put yourself first. No matter what happens, Ryan and I love you and will always be here for you. Krista had always been my little girl. She reminded me of Linda in her youth, but she'd inherited my adventurous spirit, love for nature, and wild sense of humor, traits Linda never had. My children were my pride, and knowing that they loved and respected me filled me with the strength to seek a future with room for hope and happiness. I paused briefly, reading through the messages, catching up on emails, voicemails, and missed calls. Linda had tried to reach me 12 times over the last 4 days. I assumed the first 8 calls came while she was at a banking seminar and work event. The last 4 were likely after her return, when she realized I hadn't come to pick her up at the airport. I imagined her frustration when she realized I wasn't answering her calls or texts. Ignoring her voicemails, I deleted them and opened my inbox, where I found around 30 unread messages from Linda over the past few days, but I didn't respond to any of them. Skimming her messages, I noticed that at first, she spoke of love, a sentiment I interpreted as guilt. Reading further, I saw her tone turn angry, accusing me of abandoning her at the airport after she'd waited over an hour. Her last message was a curt, "What the hell, Jack?" in all caps, a stark sign of how strained our relationship had become over recent months. I doubted she understood the depth of my pain or how weakened my feelings for her had become. Had she really grown so distant during these difficult months? I wondered if she'd forgotten the love we once shared, the family we'd built, the promises we'd made to each other. Her indifference hurt me more deeply than her betrayal. At 53, Linda still attracted attention. Her confidence and charm remained steady in any setting, social or professional. But I could no longer ignore the widening gap between us, a divide that now felt insurmountable. Seeing her by my side always stirred a quiet pride within me. I relished the way other men would steal glances at her, how their interest would flare before they quickly looked away. I felt a deep, personal satisfaction that she was mine, a feeling that lifted my confidence as we walked through crowds of admiring strangers. I often told her how beautiful and desirable she was, but she brushed off my words, mentioning her age and hinting at a fading sense of youth. It was clear these thoughts weighed on her, and I tried to assure her that time only made her more beautiful. She would just smile and say I was supposed to think that way because I was her husband, because I loved her. Then John Monroe entered her life, her younger boss, whose presence seemed to rekindle something she thought had long faded. For Linda, he became the spark she hadn't felt in years. In her eyes, I had now become just a reliable, subdued companion, a devoted friend she hardly noticed. I no longer even sensed the closeness of friendship, but that didn't seem to bother her. John Monroe, her wealthy, self-assured boss, was tall, lean, and carried himself with such self-importance that I found it offensive. His presence grated on me, while Linda looked at him as a model leader. She would often talk about him, but then her stories suddenly stopped around 6 months ago. I now realize that's likely when her affair began, a quiet, inevitable end to our 30 years together. Holding back the pain inside, I grabbed my phone and in a fit of anger, deleted all her messages before moving on to other emails. My lawyer assured me that everything for our divorce was already in motion. Then I noticed a new message in a private chat. A brief report about some man injured during a robbery, his knee shattered, and one testicle crushed. The message disappeared as soon as I read it. In another email, I saw that my resignation had been accepted. My 401k and stocks sold, and the funds transferred to my new account. The tax hit would be harsh, but I didn't care. It was time to go. Just as I pulled out of the driveway, my phone rang, and Linda's name appeared on the screen. Now or never. I decided to get through the conversation quickly, like ripping off a Band-Aid. I slowed down, turned off the engine, and answered, trying to keep my tone even. "Hello, Linda. What's going on?" "What's going on?" she shot back, her voice sharp. "Where are you? You didn't pick me up from the airport. There's no note, no response to my messages all week. What's happening, Jack?" "Oh, Linda," I replied calmly. "I honestly didn't think you cared where I was. I thought you'd prefer if I kept my distance. Gives you time to prepare, play your role for me, for the kids, and for our friends. Isn't that how your double life works?" "What?" Her voice faltered, uncertainty slipping into her tone. "Jack, what are you even talking about? There's no double life. You know I'm often away for work. And why won't the kids answer my calls or messages? And what happened to our bed? I had to sleep in the guest room last night. Jack, seriously, where are you?" "Feels like a distorted reality, doesn't it?" I replied, colder than usual. "Welcome to the life you chose for us, Linda." Her anger softened, and confusion laced her voice, as if she was beginning to grasp the consequences of her actions. "Jack, what do you mean?" she asked quietly. "Where are you?" "Does it matter? I'm not in town, Linda. For the past week I've been trying to deal with the betrayal, trying to figure out how to move forward after everything I thought I knew." She fell silent, and I heard a slight tremor in her voice at the word betrayal. But she collected herself, and her tone grew sharper again. "Are you drunk, Jack? What are you even talking about?" "Let's start with the basics, Linda. How was this banking conference? Did John manage to monopolize every morning and evening, or was he satisfied with just the nights?" Linda froze, holding her breath. After a moment she asked, "What are you even talking about? John? What John?" Her voice sounded confused, and she added, "Why are you saying these things? I'm your wife." "Yes, Linda, you're my wife," I replied, my voice heavy. "But I don't understand how you can call this a marriage. 30 years of marriage, and you still can't just be honest. I know that lately you couldn't care less about me or our family, but I was hoping that, at least now, you'd find it in yourself to tell the truth." Her voice trembled, and she whispered, "Jack, I don't understand what's happening. I love you, only you." I expected this denial. "Just to be clear, we're talking about John Monroe." Her silence told me everything. I continued, "Did you think I would never find out, or did you just not care? If you wanted to leave, even for someone else, why couldn't you just say it outright? That would have been less painful than dragging us all through lies." Her voice cracked. "Jack, please, don't talk about divorce. I love you. Come home. We'll talk everything over. There's no one else, I swear. How could you even think that?" It was painfully clear she thought I had no evidence, which was why she kept pretending. "Are you telling me that John Monroe was never in our bedroom, on our mattress, the very one that's now gone?" "What? No, absolutely not," she responded, sounding as if she was genuinely shocked. "Wait, Linda," I said, pausing as I picked up one of the photos I had gathered. 5 weeks ago, when my suspicions grew too strong to ignore, I had set up a small camera in the clock on our dresser. I sent her one of the images and continued, "Linda, look at the photo I just sent you. Are you going to tell me that isn't my wife in our bed, with her boss?" There was silence, and then I heard her hang up. Moments later, the phone erupted with her agonized cry. "Jack, please! It was just a mistake, just one time. It didn't mean anything, just a fleeting desire to feel wanted again. It wasn't supposed to hurt you. I'm so sorry. I took a deep breath, struggling to stay composed. Linda, look out the window. Do you see the burnt remains in the backyard? That was our mattress, a symbol of what you've done to us, to our marriage, to me. You burned it all, treated our life as something disposable. The silence between us was thick, almost tangible. When did I become someone you could wound so deeply, Linda? When did our family, our life together, stop being worth your honesty? Through her sobs, she pleaded, Jack, please forgive me. I love you truly. I could never hate you. I want to dedicate my life to making it right. It was a terrible mistake, selfish and thoughtless, but it was only one time. It was never about you. Linda, I said, cold yet certain, the children and I have been through enough. Do you think you're ready to be honest with me now? Is this the reason the kids stopped answering my calls? Did you speak with them, Jack? Did you somehow make them turn against me? How could you, Linda? I did nothing to make them resent you. This mess, it's entirely your fault. It's your actions, Linda, your selfish choices, and that friendship that brought us here. You let another man come between us, and it tore our family apart. I never turned the kids against you. They came to me on their own. Do you realize how sad that is? I never imagined you could betray us, that you'd walk away from us so easily. Stop pretending. We both know this wasn't a one-time thing. It lasted 6 months, didn't it? You slowly withdrew from us piece by piece, shutting down emotionally, and we just watched. Maybe the worst part is that you didn't even notice as it happened. You stopped talking to us, stopped looking at me. We hardly touched, and even when we did, it was empty. I'm sickened by it. Jack, I swear it was nothing. Just a stupid mistake, a moment of weakness in 30 years of marriage. I want you, not him. Please believe me, Jack. Linda, wait. I took out the next photo, the one Ryan took when he dropped by unexpectedly for some tools. He came into the house, heard you and Monroe in the bedroom, and quietly approached the door. He took a picture and even recorded a short video. It took him 3 weeks to find the courage to tell me, and he only did it after discussing it with Krista and agreeing that I needed to know. We sat together and I watched them break down, showing me what you did with your boss. After that, I set up a hidden camera. I sent you the photo, Linda, look at it. That was the first hard evidence of your affair, but I'm sure it started long before that, maybe even 4 months before Ryan's photo. You've been pulling away for much longer than I can bear. Ryan noticed it first. He saw you with Monroe and documented it. Do you realize how much that hurt him, Linda? To see his mother tearing our family apart? He and Krista had to decide whether to tell me, trying to handle what they had seen. How can they respect or trust you after this? Do you understand the pain they had to endure watching you destroy everything we built? They were devastated, sitting across from me, telling me you cheated. Stop trying to say it was once or just a random mistake. This has been ongoing. On your last trip, you were with him 8, maybe even 10 times. One more lie and I'm done. Jack, please, just listen. I heard Linda's voice tremble, tears falling, maybe even sinking to her knees under the weight of her betrayal. Oh, Jack, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I was overwhelmed, not thinking clearly, but it's over. It was just passion, a cheap attraction, a reckless mistake. It made me feel desired, alive in some twisted way. But there was never love, Jack. I never wanted to hurt you. Only now do I see how far I went, how distant I grew from you and the kids. I can barely look at myself. It's like staring into a nightmare. I hate who I've become, Jack. I love you, I love the kids, and I miss the life we had. Jack, please come back. Let me try to make things right. I want us to be a family again. Linda, there is no us anymore. It's over. You can't claim to love me while betraying me like this. You showed complete disregard for my feelings. And now, because of your lies, the trust between us is dead. Every memory feels tainted, every shared moment ruined. You've been seeing him for 6 months, if not longer. How many others were there? Should I question if I'm the father of our children? It doesn't even matter because I'll never believe you again. And thanks to you, I now have to get tested myself. There's nothing left between us anymore. You've hurt me in ways I couldn't have imagined, deeper than anyone else ever has. The woman I once loved and trusted with my life just threw me away without a second thought. Maybe someday the kids will come back to you, but I know I can't. Jack, please, she whispered, her voice trembling with desperation. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll agree if you want to see other women. Just don't leave me. Her voice carried such grief. I've been carrying this guilt for so long, always wanting to stop, but again and again I came back to you. Her breaths were as uneven as her words. It was just a fleeting affair. Please, forgive me. I'm so sorry. Linda, I said, my voice cold and detached. Don't waste your energy. I don't believe you, and frankly, I don't care anymore. To make things perfectly clear, on Monday, you'll receive divorce papers at the bank. She tried to interrupt me, pleading again. Please, Jack, don't do this. Don't leave me, she begged, her voice breaking. But her words couldn't reach me. I'm serious, Linda. And if you think that's the end of it, you're mistaken. I've already sent copies of photos and videos of your affair to your boss's wife. You and John Monroe can be together when his wife and I leave him. I doubt you thought of the consequences. Her voice was barely audible. Jack, tell me you didn't send them. He has a wife and children. You'll ruin their lives. I just shook my head. Do you really not understand? I'm not the one who ruined their family. You and John did that. Your reckless affair didn't just shatter my life. It hurt our kids, his wife. You destroyed 8 lives with your selfishness, but I don't expect you to understand that. I doubt you even care. Her sobs grew louder, more desperate. I could hear her breaking, but I continued. As for John, he'll have his reckoning too. I'm filing a civil suit against him for destroying my marriage. But as far as I know, he's already had a rough time. Seems he was mugged in the airport parking lot and ended up in the hospital with serious injuries. Who knows when he'll be back at work? Stop, Jack, please, she sobbed, her voice fractured. I don't care about him. I only want you. Don't do this to us. Linda, this isn't about us anymore. It's about something bigger. By next week, you and John might not have jobs. I've handed all the evidence over to the bank president and board of directors. You'll likely be fired. She could barely respond, her voice shaking. Jack, how can you hate me so much? This isn't about hate, Linda. It's your betrayal, your lies, your disrespect. You took my love and crushed it. Now I'm just trying to keep what's left of my self-respect before this ends. Her sobs continued, muffled by her sorrow. It wasn't easy to say, and truthfully it hurt me too. Beneath all this anger, I still loved her. I hated what she did, but that love continued to haunt me, even as I stood my ground. I had to end this. Linda, listen carefully. I've taken $40,000 from our savings to cover Krista's tuition for the next 3 years. I'll support her as best as I can, but this is what I can offer right now. I paused. I'm leaving you the house. I've signed the papers to transfer it to you. If you decide to sell it, you'll get around $150,000 and give me half. Her gasp cut through the silence. I don't want to sell the house, Jack. I don't want any of this. Please, come back. We can try to rebuild everything for the sake of what we had, for the love we shared. Her voice was filled with sorrow, but I didn't respond. If you sign the divorce papers, I'll leave you half of everything, or you'll lose it all, I concluded. For the first time, her voice fell silent, and the quiet between us lingered, as though it were the last page of a story neither of us wanted to end like this. I'll take everything we have. After this, you'll have nothing left. Your stance on the divorce no longer matters. I'm leaving, and I'm not staying to discuss or negotiate. Do what you want with whatever remains, because I don't care anymore. Linda, there are a few more things to clarify. By the time you read this, you'll realize I've moved out. I left my wedding ring on the dresser, treated as you treated our marriage. Ryan will swing by to pick up some of my fishing and hunting gear. He'll come when you're not there. Don't be alarmed if you find some things missing. He doesn't want to see you. Krista will also come to retrieve her belongings, although she's not planning on returning here. She too preferred to come in your absence, so expect her room to be empty. One more thing, Linda. I shared photos of your fun times with your parents, my parents, and everyone in our contact list. You might want to think about the story you'll tell them. I won't let you paint me as the villain in our broken marriage." Her cries grew louder, almost turning to hysteria. I feared she might pass out at any moment, but it had to end like this. "Finally, Linda, I quit my job and I'm leaving the state. I need to be far away from all of this. Someday I hope to meet a woman who values commitment, respects me, sees me as her equal, a person I can trust. I hope you find whatever it was you were looking for too. But don't try to find me. If you need anything, contact Ryan or my attorney. Otherwise, this is it. Our paths have diverged. Goodbye, Linda." I heard her yelling after me, begging, "Jack, don't go. Forgive me, Jack." A shadow of regret and sadness began to weigh on my thoughts. Somewhere deep down, I knew I had crossed a line, and it might take a long time, if ever, before I could forgive myself for this cruelty. I doubted I would ever forgive her, but I knew my path would be difficult, requiring healing and time before I could trust again. Above all, I refused to let bitterness consume me. Linda had refused to sign the divorce papers, so I had taken action. Our prenup came into effect. Linda was left without a home and without money, like a stray dog. Even her lover refused to help her. But I felt not a trace of pity for her. She got what she deserved. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.